put this up a little. I have to remember to start with a smile because as soon as I hit go live, I'm live. So, hi, welcome everybody. This is the 4th episode of Vichangry's Believe It or Not. I'm your host, Vichangry. So, this week we're going to be talking about near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. So, yeah, I don't really have many of either. I don't have a ton, but I've had a few, so I want to at least make it into an episode because at the end of the day, I started this so-called podcast to share my very own experiences with stuff like this. So, although I don't have as many as like my paranormal experiences, I still had a few, so I wanted to mention that and turn it into an episode. So with that being said, this episode might be a little short only because I don't have that many of these types of experiences, but I'm gonna do my best to make it as long as I can. Thanks for being here, and please don't forget to check out my clothing line where I sell stuff like this sweatshirt back here. I sell mugs, like the mug that you guys have seen me use, fanny packs, shirts. There's stuff that has to do with the podcast. There's stuff that doesn't have to do with the podcast. I wanted to give variety of options for you guys there in case you wanted to support without, it saying it all over the front. So I did some other designs there for you guys. So please check that out. I'll be leaving the link in the description, which I have to wait for it to be uploaded and then I go back and edit it. So if in the meantime you guys want to go check it out, the link to my shop is in Instagram under Vichangry's clothing, Vichangry clothing. Look that up on Instagram. You can find it. So anyways, let's go ahead and get right into the 4th episode of Vichangry's Believe It or Not. So we're going to start with the news, some hot topics that are going on right now. This is the week of August 27th, 2021. I like to say what year it is because I watch a lot of YouTubers and their videos would be about 2-3 years old and they're like, oh, today on, August 10th, and I want a year to kind of put things more into perspective. So that's where why I say what year it is. I know you guys know what year it is, but just in case these videos are up for a long time, people in the future, I want them to know what year I was talking about. So anyways, here we are in the week of August 27th, 2021. I don't know if this topic is allowed to be mentioned on YouTube. I know they go through and they filter everything, but it is happening right now, so I just want to mention it, whatever's going on in the Middle East and how they were recently taken over by another force, and we may or may not be looking into going to war. So that's a pretty big deal, pretty big thing going on. Recently the CDC has said that we should start taking a 3rd shot to boost the other 2, which, that's neither here nor there, I'm just mentioning it. Global warming is still slightly being talked about, and I'm starting to see it more and more in more ads, and more companies and places are pledging to go green and leave less of a carbon footprint, if any, within the next few years. So honestly, it does seem like, people are taking these global warming, climate change threats pretty seriously now. I mean, at least I would hope so. Okay. Also, another quick note on this week, I started classes, so I will be doing biology, environmental science, and college math this semester on another side note. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and get into my experiences. I'm going to start with my near death experiences. And when I say near death, I'm just talking about really extreme circumstances that I was in where the outcome could have been fatal. I don't necessarily mean that I actually, almost died, was ever in a coma, I don't have, thank goodness, any experiences like that. So these are just times that were really extreme that I'm lucky to have made it out alive. So the first time I can remember, I was really, not the first time, it's kind of around the first times. When I was younger, I'm talking 12, 13, 14, 15, I would participate in extreme behavior. I'm not going to get too into it, only for the fact that I do have, a daughter, and I do have potentially younger listeners, and I don't want to expose them to anything that they would rather have not been exposed to if they didn't hear me talking about it. But there was this thing that all the kids used to do that was really fun and highly dangerous, and I did it a bunch of times, and any one of those times I literally could have died. So those were all basically near-death experiences I'm counting, because for the fact of how stupid they were, and other kids were dying off of the same thing that I was doing over and over and over again. So that is something that I am grateful to have come out from. And there was this time, another time, when we're young and we start drinking and we just think that we could just drink the whole night away. Whoops. So basically one night I drank an entire bottle of tequila to myself, and I ended up in the hospital after being hauled around town. I was thrown onto a front lawn, sprayed down with a water hose, thrown into a bathtub, thrown into a car, thrown out of the car into the front lawn of my friend's house, who they then took me into their house, who then got a hold of my family, who then took me to the hospital. And at that point I woke up. I was passed out the whole time, and they were like, yep, she's drunk. And I had drank so much that I basically could have gotten alcohol poisoning and died. And honestly, since that day, that night, I do not drink tequila. I can't smell it, I can't be around it, I can't anything, because that was just a very, very terrible experience for me. Another time, I was in a really bad car accident. I'm kind of jumping. Most of my stories don't ever go in order because I remember them sporadically. So, yeah. So this other time, I was in a really bad car accident, and if the circumstances were, slightly different, I could have been injured really bad or worse. And, it was my fault. It was 3 cars involved, and my car was smashed to smithereens. I have pictures of it somewhere. I I had them on my MySpace, I think, and then I saved them. And anyways, that was another near-death experience for me because, like I said, any slight change of what happened, I most likely wouldn't be here right now. Another time, my sister and I were driving on the highway. This was a highway going to Monterey, and we saw this guy like coming up fast from behind us, and he was waving like a police badge in his mirror, and he was like, or like out the window, basically we saw him in the mirror, in our rear view mirror, like, hey, like showing his police badge, and he's like, pull over right now, showing us his police badge and everything. Got all close to us, and we were so scared. Like, he wasn't in a police car, he wasn't wearing a police uniform, he didn't have like a little siren light or anything, and he was just literally trying to get us to pull over. And you know, we didn't. We had such a bad feeling, we just kept driving. And later that week on the radio, on the like local radio station, they were warning people, if you're driving up that exact highway that we were on, that there was like this serial killer going up and down trying to get girls to pull over so then he could attack them. So I want to say honestly that that was another near, you know, death experience, because if we would have pulled over this guy, who knows what he would have done with us. And to know that he had already attacked other women, I don't know if he was killing them or just attacking them. I don't know, but I do remember hearing on the radio he was a serial something going up and down the highway trying to get people to pull over, and we literally saw him. We experienced that. So I don't want to say that this was a near-death experience for us, but I say us, me and my sisters. I talk about them a lot here. But I mentioned in my last video of the people who I know who've passed, we did have a close friend of ours who lived in the neighborhood, and she was brutally murdered in her house by her next door neighbor. So just for the fact that we lived in the same neighborhood as this guy, he could have attacked any of us, honestly, and unfortunately it was our friend. So just thinking that alone, that makes me think of how close I came even back then. And I don't even have that experience listed here as a near-death experience, but I want to mention it because of the fact that we all lived in that same neighborhood, and it could have been, you know, anybody. And on that same note, there was this guy who was watching. I say the same note because it's the same house, but two separate experiences and two separate men. I don't want to confuse you guys. So there was this guy who would watch. He was watching our house for like a week straight. He was parked right in front of the house, and he would like drive forward, and then he would like drive back every few hours just to kind of make it seem like if he wasn't right in front of our house. And he was just like watching who was coming in and out, everything like that. And one night my sister heard, like that same week, one of those nights, my sister heard the doorknob rattling, and clearly it must have been the guy who was watching our house. You know, thank God we locked our door, because who knows what would have happened if he would have gotten into our house. So, lastly, let's see, this last experience. I know I've had so many, like, just driving fast, or, you know, going places that say danger, keep out, stuff like that. I've done so many stuff like that. These were just experiences that literally brought me almost close to dying. Another time, before I get to this last one, I don't know why I didn't write this down. It was the main one that triggered this whole episode. I was in 7th grade and I had a friend, Emily, if you are ever watching this, I am so sorry and I love you. And out of all the friends I've ever had, I think of you the most because you taught me the most. So anyways, sorry guys, my setup today is a little different. As you could see, I started class this week, so I had to leave my desk in my other room, and I'm just using my little table here. So I have a makeshift setup, so that's why I just knocked it over. I'm so sorry. So anyways, I was at my friend Emily's house, and you guys know those big barrel candies that look like root beer barrels? Well, I was eating one right before I was going to take a shower. So I was in the bathroom, door locked, and I had that candy in my mouth. And I just remember looking into the mirror, like sticking my tongue out with the candy behind my teeth, like, oh, like you can't see the candy. I don't know why I was doing this. I was in there by myself, like I was just going crazy, like, ooh. And next thing you know, that huge barrel candy slid down my throat, and I was like it was lodged, like I could not breathe whatsoever. So I start like rattling the door because it was locked from the inside. I could have unlocked it at any point, but I just was so freaked out I couldn't think about that. So I was like grabbing my throat, wiggling the lock, and I think I finally opened the door, but then I realized like I didn't have any clothes on because I was about to take a shower. I was at my friend's house. So I shut the door again, and then I locked it, and my friend's like, what are you doing? Like, open the door. And I was like, I can't. Like, she could hear me struggling. So she tells me like, get some water and drink it. Like, drink some water from the sink. So I grabbed like my hands like this, started drinking water, and luckily it went down. And honestly, minus my car accident, I want to say that this was the scariest time where I really thought I was gonna die. Like, I mean, I wasn't like almost passing out or anything, but I was like couldn't breathe for a couple of minutes. Like I was just like full-blown choking. And honestly, that experience is what caused me to want to do this episode about near-death experiences. But so this last time happened just 2 days ago, believe it or not. And we have an electric dryer, so the gas for a gas dryer is just sticking out of the wall. And we have a washing machine, and you know when washing machines like do the spin or whatever, they shake really badly, like it's like boom, 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 boom. So I left to work that morning, and I went to work at about 8 o'clock. And I put my clothes to wash, so they were done, we'll say about 9 o'clock. I don't know how long it takes. It wasn't exactly 8 when I left either, so I'm gonna say about 9 o'clock was when the clothes cycle finished. Well, at some point, the washing machine had hit the gas pipe that wasn't connected to anything because we have an electric dryer. So it just bumped the nozzle open, and there was literal gas shooting from the spout on the wall into my garage for 4 hours straight. And it was so loud that I can hear psh, like that's how much pressure was being released of this gas. So when I came home from work that day, I opened my front door and I was like, whoa, like I got hit with gas. Like I was instantly, excuse me guys, instantly sick, instantly had a headache. All of my danger radars were going off. It was like danger, 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 danger. I checked the stove, I checked everywhere, and I eventually made it to the garage. I found it, turned it off, and that was pretty scary. But the scariest part about all this is that right next to the spout on the wall where the gas was shooting out from, I'm talking like right next to it, is our AC unit. And we live in Arizona, so the AC unit's going on all the time. And in order for the AC unit to start, it literally ignites a huge flame every single time. So there was this huge flame like being ignited next to a spout leaking full-blown gas gas for 4 hours straight. And our house could have blown up. I could have walked in with the electricity. I mean, anything could have happened. Anything terrible. But luckily, I found it, turned it off, and that was that. And I am adding that on this episode because it was definitely a near-death experience. I could have literally inhaled so much gas, passed out, died, anything. I mean, it was scary. It was very real. So those were my near-death experiences. And I do happen to have one out-of-body experience from these near-death experiences. It's going to be my car crash that I was telling you guys about. That day, before I left the driveway, I was leaving my friend's house. Okay, here's her house. And right in front of her house is like Highway 46. It isn't like there's a little driveway. No, here's the house, there's the highway. So I'm driving out of her house and my foot slams on the brake by itself, like, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I hear, put your seatbelt on. Like, in a very stern, very loud, and overbearing voice said, put your seatbelt on. So I did. And I want to say that that was the beginning of my out-of-body experience, was me hearing that. Like, I don't even know where that came from. It could have been God. I don't know. But that was the start of this weird paranormal spiritual experience for me, because how did I hear that? You know what I'm saying? So I heard that. Put my seatbelt on. In less than 2 minutes, even less than 1 minute, I was in a full-blown crash. I was going 50 miles an hour. The car's coming this way, we're going 50 miles an hour. And there was a random signal light, okay, in the middle of this highway that was at red. And all the cars in front of me were at a complete stop. And I was going to hit them head on. So I decided to turn my wheel, and it was raining, so I hydroplaned, spun out of control, and hit oncoming traffic. Now, I know this because that was in the accident report. I don't know it because I saw it. Like, I blacked out. Like, as soon as I saw the cars in front of me and I made the decision to turn my wheel like that, boom, instantly passed out. And I felt like my soul like jump. I don't know if you guys ever seen like Once Upon a Time, that TV show, and there's a part of like where they're dealing with Peter Pan and he steals people's shadows and it like jumps and all this stuff. That's how I pictured myself. Like, my shadow, my spirit, my soul jumped out of my body before any impact, before anything happened. And I was like waiting above in this black box. Most people with out-of-body experiences report seeing and hearing everything that's going on. But as a form of safety, I was blacked out. I think I was having this out-of-body experience just in case I went through a traumatic event. I wasn't going to be there to witness it. So I was just up in this like black box up in the corner of my car waiting for everything to end, and then my airbag deploys and hits me. As soon as it hits me, I felt my spirit go from up here back into my body, and then I'm like immediately assessing for damage. I'm like, did I get injured? Luckily, nothing happened. And I had so many blessings that day alone, like the fact that something told me to put my seatbelt on, the fact that I personally was not injured from this horrible accident. The person who I hit was injured. Like, he could no longer work. He's on disability for the rest of his life, and he was like 20, 30 years old. I think I caused him to bite down really hard on his tongue, and I think he literally chopped off half of his tongue, and I was sued. Like, it was a very, very bad accident, and somehow I had an out-of-body experience and I didn't, get hurt. It was just a crazy thing to have experienced along with getting into a crash. Like, it wasn't just like I got into a car accident that day. I full-blown jumped out of my body, and that has never happened to me before. So that was a little crazy. So now I'm going to talk about just out-of-body experiences in general, and I wanted to find a popular one because that was kind of like the theme of the podcast too, was like to share my experience and then also share like a popular known experience of the thing. So there are many reports of out-of-body experiences. I can't tell them all to you guys. You guys just have to go and search it up and listen to people's stories, and most of all, believe them. I've been sharing my stories for a while now, and the amount of people who don't believe me, that's honestly why I've called this podcast Believe It or Not, because honestly, I'm not here to convince you guys. I'm just here to share my stories. And the worst part about sharing your story is when just people full-blown don't even believe you, don't even give you the chance, don't even give you the time of day. And just know that just because you weren't there, you didn't experience it, it doesn't take away from another person's experience. I have had so many experiences. I swear, I don't want to get into it, but like, I've seen ghosts, I've seen a UFO, I've met a being that was not from here. I've, heard things. I download messages. Information gets put into my head. I know things that I don't even know where I got the information from. And people will just be like, wow, you're crazy. Like, none of that's real. And it's just so, honestly, I don't care. I don't let things get to me like that. But it's just upsetting how some people can really have those small of minds. Like, honestly, the one thing that I say too is like, if you really know me, you know I'm crazy. Like, I'm a crazy lady, and crazy people don't get this way for no reason. We get this way from the stuff that we've seen first-hand experiences that opens this little door in your mind that lets you know that life isn't, just night and day, Starbucks and pizza and work, and, there's so much more to experience in between. And fortunately for me, I have experienced so many things that a lot of people haven't. All right, so that was my tangent. Anyways, so there's this one actor. His name is Stephen Graham. He's not too well known. Like, I personally have never really heard of him, but he was in the Pirates of the Caribbean. So he is, a pretty well-known actor, at least for landing that role. I'm not sure what he played in the movie, but he was in that movie. He was also in a show called This Is England. he has his podcast, or he was on someone else's podcast where they were asking him some questions about his acting career. And he's like talking about a time that he remembers how it all started. He was about 14 years old, where he got invited to start going back and forth to plays and auditions, stuff like that. So eventually, when he was 18 years old, at one of these plays, he was doing a monologue. And he describes seeing himself go to the front of the stage and talking to the people and everything, but he was above, like, watching from the balcony. And that's kind of all he says about it. He just says it was really weird and profound. It was a, major part of his career. So I just wanted to mention his quick little out-of-body experience, just to let you guys know, like, this kind of stuff happens to everybody. It happens to people like me. It happens to people like actors who wouldn't be making it up because they already have attention and money. I don't think out-of-body experiences are too hard to believe, so I don't think that would be much of a problem trying to convince people that they're even real. But studies of out-of-body experiences date back all the way to the 1800s, where just people would report seeing themselves, leave their bodies, and then they could see themselves laying there and stuff. I read this, it was this one report from like 1864, this lady. And since then, scientists have been studying it, but they just can't figure out, really what happens. I just recently learned in my science class that things like this can't technically be studied by science because they are out of the realm of matter and energy. So anything that lacks matter and energy cannot be scientifically studied. So, or proven, basically. It can be studied because scientists have been studying this, but they just can't prove anything because it's hard to measure anything when there's nothing to measure. So basically, all they've been able to do is measure people's brain activity while this is happening to them. And they can see, like, something, is happening, but they just don't know what. There are also people who, when they flatline, like in the hospital, and then they come back, they report being able to see and hear everything that was going on. So that clearly are signs of out-of-body experiences. So, so far what they were able to gather is that out-of-body experiences seem to be caused during sleep, during times of extreme physical effort, or in near-death experiences. People will experience out-of-body experiences, kind of exactly like mine. I think mine falls exactly into that. I was having a near-death experience, so naturally I had an out-of-body experience, which all just happened by itself. It was so crazy. They also say that pilots and astronauts experience out-of-body experiences when they get to a certain point. They experience something called gravity-induced loss of consciousness, and this basically just causes them to have out-of-body experiences as well, which is a little scary to think about, pilots and astronauts having out-of-body experiences. But then also just kind of makes me think, how they say, like, when you go in driving somewhere and then you kind of just check out, and next thing you know you're there and you're like, how did I get here? I wonder if that's a form of out-of-body experience as well, because that happens a lot. Like, you know, you're driving somewhere, even if whether it's long or short distance, you tend to just kind of zone out, and next thing you know, you're there and you don't remember. Like, I don't remember telling myself turn left, turn right, go straight. You just kind of did it. I think those are, you know, little forms of out of body experiences. So basically, that's gonna wrap up that. There's no scientific studies to actually prove what happens to us, you know, physically or spiritually. They just are probably going to continue to study it, or who knows, until if we can actually figure stuff like that out, how we can figure out how to measure things without energy or matter. There's got to be another way, because a lot of people don't believe in stuff like this, or the supernatural or spiritual, simply for the fact that science can't prove it. But science can't prove it only for the fact that there's nothing to keep, you know, record of, or nothing to measure. So I feel like if science comes to a point where we can measure stuff like that, people like us and, you know, people with stories like mine will possibly start to be believed more, now that science actually has something to measure and to keep data. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Vichangry's Believe It or Not. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also, in the comments, let me know if you guys have had any of these experiences, out of body, near death, anything like that, because it is so interesting, and I love to hear other people's stories. So, you know, don't be shy. Share your story, even if it's about your mom or your grandma. Like, share those stories. We got to keep these stories going, you know. It's up to us to share our stories and let people know that stuff like this is real. So yeah, please share them with us, and I would love to read them. And also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel here and turn on the notifications, because then that way it'll notify you as soon as I go live to post these. I post these live, I say it all the time now, because I don't have enough space on my phone to record and edit and upload a whole video. So these are coming at you guys live. So yeah, turn on my notifications, that way you guys won't miss when I'm live. And just in case you miss when I'm live, that's totally fine too. I appreciate the support and everything like that. Lastly, please don't forget to check out my shop, where again, I sell stuff like my sweatshirt and a bunch of other stuff. I'll leave the links in the description. And that's going to be it for me today. And I will see you guys next time on the next episode. And don't forget that in the end, it's up to you to believe it or not. Bye, guys.